This is an unbelievable scene. Block after block, mile after mile of this.
Meteorologists tracked it. News anchors talked about it. But most people on the East Coast had seen this movie before. The storm would come close, maybe dump some rain, and then veer back out to sea. Except this time, it didn't. Sandy turned, and what followed was something the East Coast had never seen before. A hurricane with the reach of a continent, crashing directly into some of the most densely populated cities in America.
I don't know what's going on. It's not my pain. What the hell is this?
By the time it made landfall on October 29th, 2012, Hurricane Sandy had grown into a monster, over 1,000 miles wide. Its winds stretched from the Carolinas to Canada, and it wasn't coming quietly. Across New York, New Jersey, and dozens of other states, the air felt electric. The skies were bruised with purple clouds. The wind howled before the rain even started. And under it all, the sea began to rise. Kevin Russo was at home on Staten Island when it started. He was 27, living with his younger sister Mia in a narrow two-story house near the coast. Their parents had passed a few years earlier, and the house had become their anchor. They weren't rich. They didn't have a second place to escape to. So when the warnings came, they did what they always did. Stayed inside, filled the bathtub with water, stocked up on canned food, and waited it out. But nothing could have prepared them for what was coming. Sandy struck like a hammer. The ocean didn't just surge, it invaded. Water poured into streets that had never flooded before. In lower Manhattan, the East River jumped its banks and raced into subway tunnels. Lights flickered across the skyline, then went black. An entire city built on steel and concrete was brought to its knees by water. Kevin and Mia stood at their window as the street outside transformed into a river. Trash bins floated by like toy boats. The wind was so loud, it sounded like a train roaring past their house. Then came the moment they'd never forget, when the front door gave way. Water burst into the house with such force it knocked over furniture in seconds. The first floor filled rapidly. Kevin grabbed Mia's hand and pulled her upstairs. In less than 20 minutes, the entire bottom floor was submerged, and they weren't alone. Across the boroughs, families climbed into attics and onto rooftops. Emergency responders couldn't get through. Roads were underwater. Electrical fires sparked in neighborhoods like Breezy Point, where over 100 homes burned down. Even as floodwaters rushed in around them, hospitals were forced to evacuate in the middle of the storm. Ambulances rolled through waist-high water. Nurses carried newborns down dark stairwells by flashlight. One major power station in Manhattan exploded in a flash of blue light, plunging much of the city into darkness. Kevin and Mia huddled in their attic. They had no electricity, no cell service, no idea if anyone knew they were there. Every gust of wind shook the house. The water below them was creeping higher, inch by inch. The only way out was through a tiny window, and they knew that if the water didn't stop rising, they'd have to break it and climb onto the roof. The hours dragged on. Outside, the city was being reshaped. Boardwalks were ripped away like paper. Piers disappeared into the ocean. Entire blocks of homes were flattened in parts of New Jersey and Long Island. In the coastal town of Seaside Heights, the iconic roller coaster was swallowed by the sea. But what made Sandy so devastating wasn't just its size, it was its timing. The storm hit during a full moon, when tides were already at their peak. That meant the storm surge was even higher, more violent. In some areas, water levels rose over 14 feet, and because Sandy struck head-on, it had nowhere to go but inland.
About over the last 6 or 7 hours, there is a landfall expected somewhere between Long Island, New York, down through areas of Virginia. It's centered somewhere around New Jersey or Delaware.
In Kevin and Mia's attic, the water stopped rising just 2 feet below the ceiling. They spent the night in darkness, soaked, cold, and waiting for either rescue or disaster. When morning came, the silence was deafening. The storm had passed, but the world outside was unrecognizable. Streets were no longer streets. Cars were stacked on top of each other like toys. Boats sat in the middle of roadways. Power lines hung like vines. It looked like a war zone. Kevin pried open the attic window and climbed out. Their neighborhood was gone. The houses across the street had collapsed. Some were on fire. Others were floating in pieces. He called out for help, but no one answered. Eventually, a neighbor in a kayak paddled by, offering to take Mia to dry ground. Kevin stayed behind, trying to salvage what little remained. They were lucky. Many weren't. In total, Hurricane Sandy killed at least 117 people in the United States, 44 in New York City alone. The damage was staggering. Over $70 billion in destruction.
SuperStorm Sandy likely delivered insurance companies a $20 billion bill.
Recovery is underway. New York is starting to build again.
Look, it's been a long week. It has been a long week for everyone. It's not over. There are still inconveniences, but it could have been a lot worse.
This is a massive storm.
The most important message that I have for the public right now is please listen to what your state and local officials are saying.
It was, at the time, the second costliest storm in U.S. history. But Sandy did more than destroy property. It exposed how fragile modern cities really are. It revealed how quickly everything can unravel, how a single storm can bring the world's most powerful city to a standstill. For weeks, parts of New York and New Jersey were without power, heat, or clean water. Gas shortages sparked hour-long lines at stations. Schools became shelters. Volunteers from across the country poured in to help. And through it all, stories like Kevin and Mia's echoed across the region. Stories of survival, of neighbors helping neighbors, of strangers sharing food, clothing, and flashlights.
We tried to stop it. We put towels down, we had the sandbags down. It was rushing in. It was rushing in.
The worst storm many had ever seen also revealed the best in people. Kevin and Mia eventually rebuilt their home. But things were never quite the same. Every rainfall brought back memories. Every gust of wind made them flinch. They didn't forget what it felt like. To be trapped, to be helpless, to stare death in the face and wonder if anyone was coming. But they also didn't forget what came after. The hands that reached out, the people who showed up, the community that refused to break. Because sometimes the storm doesn't just destroy, it reveals. It shows you what really matters, what's worth holding on to, and just how strong you can be when the water is rising. If you found this story powerful, let us know by hitting the like button, and make sure to subscribe. We've got more true stories of survival, disaster, and resilience coming soon. You won't want to miss what's next.